Hi, this is Jenny Langley, author of the new Maudsley training manual, and in this video we're looking at exercise 4.1, which is all about the cycle of change. So module 4 basically looks at this model and then goes on to introduce all of the communication skills, so it's a really important module for carers. And the idea is that we help carers to come alongside their loved one wherever they might be in that cycle of change. The key message is that you cannot rush anyone to make changes. So compassion, empathy and unconditional love are really key attributes for carers to apply when they're trying to come alongside their loved one. Okay, so this model describes the process a person has to go through to make any change. So whatever the decision might be, you might go round this cycle of change. And it's a tool that's been used in eating disorder therapy areas for many years, as well as many other therapeutic areas. So it's sort of a really well-known psychological model. And it's just a guide, really. So this is a very simple version of the model. So you can see that there's 6 different segments. So pre-contemplation is what very often people refer to as denial. Contemplation, the person's in 2 minds. Should I make a change? Shouldn't I make a change? You know, that kind of thing when you wake up in the night and everything's going around in your head. Preparation is thinking about making the change and actually starting to think, well, what actually am I going to do? So, you know, detailed contingency planning, thoughts, visualizing, verbalizing, all that sort of thing happens in the preparation stage. Then in action, obviously you're doing a series of experiments to try and make changes, some of which will work and some of which won't. And then maintenance is basically where you've gone around the cycle of change, you've got back to a good level of health, and you're looking forward to a much better life. And of course it's not as simple as that, because then you might have relapses or little lapses or big relapses, and you can go around the cycle of change many times before you actually come out the other side, to whatever your version of recovery is. Okay, so let's have a look at a little bit more detail. So pre-contemplation, very often carers will come to the workshops and say, nothing works, my loved one doesn't want to get better. And that's the really difficult thing about eating disorders, isn't it? That people are really, you know, very sort of resistant to change. You know, there's nothing wrong with me, it's you that's got the problem, often is what sufferers will be saying to their carers. And there's 2 types of pre-contemplation. So one is where the sufferer absolutely has got no idea what you're on about. So they really don't think that there's anything wrong. And there's a technical term for that, which I love, anosognosia, what a lovely word that is. And it's just, you know, it's very difficult for carers because they can see something's wrong, but the sufferer is saying there's absolutely nothing wrong, leave me alone, I don't know what you're on about. Then there's the other type of pre-contemplation where the sufferer knows that if they stick with this for the long term, it's not going to be healthy or helpful, and it might restrict their quality of life or even their life expectancies, but they're not willing to think about making any changes. So an example for that might be, you know, a middle-aged woman who has bulimia, and she knows that if she carries on being bulimic, it's going to affect her health longer term. But at the moment, it's her coping strategy, it's maybe her hidden secret. She's got no motivation to even think about making changes. Okay, so you can see that there's different types of pre-contemplation. In contemplation, that's where the loved one or the sufferer understands there's a problem. They might say, I'm going to do something, but then they're unable to do it. So, and it is that time when you wake up in the middle of the night and things going round and round in your head. And we have a marvellous tool for carers to use at this stage called the decisional balance. And I'm making lots of videos on that, so have a look at those. The difficulty is when, if you're a carer and you see that your loved one is sort of showing some green shoots and they're saying, you know, you can see that they're thinking about change, and the temptation is to rush in and focus on the fact that they might want to change. And if you rush that person too quickly, you're likely to send them scuttling back into pre-contemplation. Think of it of overwatering a little plant, and it just can't thrive. It's got too much attention. So that can be difficult for carers. Then we move on to preparation. So this can be a fragile stage. So it might be, you know, a teenager has been being seen by child and adolescent mental health services, and they're doing well with their meal plan, and they're thinking about, well, okay, I know that I'm doing too much exercise. I'm thinking about reducing my exercise. I'm going to make plans to reduce my exercise. But do I really want to reduce my exercise? Because there's that nagging doubt. So carers can really help sufferers to think about what's realistic, you know, what would be a good thing to plan, and what might be a step too far. Then in action, obviously the sufferer is making those changes. And again, some changes will work out really well, some changes won't work out so well. So lots of empathy and compassion at the challenge of making those changes is really useful for sufferers from the carers. Maintenance we've already talked about, so they're maintaining the action, they're resisting relapse, and at this stage it can be really good to do sort of relapse contingency plans. So what things are coming up, so like a timeline almost, so what things might be coming up over the next year. So it might be a load of 16th birthday parties or GCSEs or going on holiday or planning for university or applying for a job or something like that, and looking at those life events that are coming up in the future that might trigger some sort of lapse or relapse. So that can be a really useful thing to do. And relapse and lapse is obviously are a normal part of life, a part of recovery. This is where sufferers can really maybe learn from their mistakes, or carers can learn from their mistakes, and the family kind of grows together. But as Janet Treasure said, every mistake is a treasure. So every lapse and relapse, there's something to learn from that, what went wrong. It's not that you're back at square one. It's just that, you know, something's come along that's kind of just tripped you up a little bit. And then you can reflect on that, work out good strategies to go forward. And again, carers can be really helpful with that. So this is a more realistic version of the model, the squiggle model. So nobody, or I've never heard of anyone just going in at contemplation and going around the circle once and coming out. I've certainly not seen that. And it can look like this. It can be like a roller coaster or a very windy tunnel, people sometimes say, or riding the stormy seas of recovery is another expression that people often talk about. And also somebody might be in pre-contemplation about one thing, but in action about another. So again, with the example of the young person, they might be in action with their meal plans, but in pre-contemplation about giving up their exercise or reducing self-harm or something like that. So you can be in different stages. And then the other thing is carers are also at different stages of the cycle of change. So in this exercise at this stage, we ask the carers, where are you in the cycle of change compared to where is your loved one, and what problems might this lead to? So these are some comments from carers in the workshops. So Gillian says that she sees herself as firmly in action, and she guesses her son Simon is still in contemplation. She'd never thought about this before, and her initial response was to consider that maybe she's been rushing Simon too much. She said, maybe I am overwatering these green shoots that I'm seeing. And very often he says, Mum, you don't understand me and this isn't helping. And so she could understand why that was happening by learning about the cycle of change. And then Peter says he feels he's actually, as a carer, been in pre-contemplation. He's been trying to convince himself it's just a passing phase. His wife's been really concerned and been firmly in action to try and help his son. And he realises now that his wife's in action, his son's in contemplation, he's been in pre-contemplation, and that explains why communication within the family has been fraught with such difficulty. Okay, and then a couple more comments from carers having learnt about the cycle of change. So the husband of a 35-year-old wife, why didn't they tell me how complex this process would be when my wife was given a diagnosis of an eating disorder? I've been pushing her too hard and getting really frustrated at the slow progress, and now I feel I've made things so much worse. And again, very often in the workshops, carers express sort of feelings of, oh, I've just been doing it all wrong, and it's really important that we all work as a group together to help to regain confidence and to help carers understand that there's so much that they can do to come alongside their loved ones and really help them in that recovery process. And then finally, mother of a 21-year-old son, I didn't really understand about the cycle of change before. I just wanted to fix my son. I thought I could fix him. This model has helped me to consider my son's commitment to change and why change might be so difficult for him. So understanding the cycle of change has also helped me to have confidence to step in and implement some changes in my own responses, the carer's responses to his behaviours. The animal metaphors also have really helped me to be able to reflect on the type of carer I'm being, and that sometimes I can make really small changes that can really have a beneficial impact. Also, by coming alongside my son, I've been better able to communicate with him as he's moved on that journey round through preparation and into action. And I could help him to start to be more self-reflective about the progress he's made and the courage and determination he's used to challenge him back. So really useful model for carers to consider, both in terms of where they are in the cycle of change and where their loved one is in the cycle of change, and also other people in the family. You know, where's my husband? Where's the siblings? Maybe where are the teachers at school? You know, how can we help them to come alongside and really help the sufferer? A really important note just at the end here is coming alongside the sufferer doesn't mean you're agreeing with all their actions. It just means that you're putting yourself in their shoes and you're helping them to consider what all the different options are, and that change is possible. And then you can walk with them. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. All of the worksheets and videos can be found at www.newmaudsleykcarers-kent.co.uk. Thank you.